Okay, we are live on the Merge Media Facebook page as well as the Business Owner Mastermind group. I'm Jay. Right there is Dave, and we have Raj on today. Raj Dhiman. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, we're good.
Awesome. And we're going to talk about customer loyalty programs today. I'm sure you guys are going to get a ton of value. I'm going to pass the conch over to David to introduce today's podcast guest.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Merge Marketing Podcast. My name is David, co-host and producer, along with my partner, Jason Hunt. Today, we're pleased to welcome Raj Dhiman to the show. Raj is an activist of the hustle, from tutoring to make ends meet after completing his PhD to returning to running sales teams. The global pandemic has allowed his hustle to shine. With building an app to help customers find groceries and shopping local, handcrafting furniture for friends, launching his small business hustle newsletter, consulting for small businesses for a side gig while co-launching a mask vending machine company, Raj is the guy that hustles. He started his sales career showing SMBs how to build their own loyalty programs. In his day job, he helps small businesses partner with airlines to offer reward miles as loyalty incentive. In his experience, he has seen firsthand how small businesses can benefit through loyalty. Raj is also the world's self-proclaimed biggest dog lover and wants to own a farm so that he can adopt 100 dogs. He may need to choose between his dog farm and his future wife, but for now, he will focus on his love for loyalty. Raj, thank you very much for being on the show today.
I appreciate the opportunity for being here. I'd love to converse and chat about loyalty and see how we can help your listeners out there in terms of improving their customer loyalty, improving their customer loyalty programs, or even starting a loyalty program if it's something that's on their minds.
On a side note, I think it's important to note the whole dog lover thing, because today, out of any episode, we actually have a dog kicking around the office today. So for the listeners out there, you might periodically hear a bark or a moan coming from a dog. So I think it's a perfect episode for it, though. If we're gonna have any episode at all have a dog in it, this is the episode, right?
That's awesome.
Absolutely. This is going to be our most understanding guest for sure. So Raj, we typically just start off with the guest kind of explaining a little bit more about themselves and sharing a little bit more about who they are. So why don't you go about that now and just kind of share a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I always describe myself as not the average salesperson. My background is in academia. I went to U of T. I did my PhD in chemistry. I was left very unfulfilled at the end of the experience, and said to myself, I got to go under some sort of reinvention here. I have to do something that's far different because I'm not satisfied with this. And I had an employment coach that told me, listen, I've done sales before. I've seen what it takes to do well. I've sold in many industries before. I think, consider it. Think that sales might be something that'd be very valuable for you as a career path. You have some skill sets, and if you find the right product to sell and you find the right people to work with, this is something that I think you'll excel in. And it took me about a year and a half before I actually landed in a role. And my first role was selling into small businesses and selling customer loyalty software. So I learned about the ins and outs of loyalty while building my sales skills at the exact same time. So it was a wonderful experience. I did this at Rogers Communications, selling products that you wouldn't think that Rogers would sell. But it's given me a lot of insight in terms of what do small businesses go through on a daily basis, how many balls they need to juggle every single day, and while balancing out their personal and their personal ambitions and their professional ambitions, how can we as software providers help enhance some of those goals? But a lot of that comes from having empathy for the small business owner and understanding what they go through. So that experience really shaped and molded my sales career going forward. So it's all been about small business, whether it be selling e-commerce solutions, loyalty solutions, telecom back at Rogers, and now doing partnerships on behalf of airlines. It's all about how do we help the small business, how do we help the small business owner, and how do we help them grow, especially in a time like today.
Interesting. And I'm interested to get your take on this, and Jay too, because he does most of the sales here at our company, and selling to small businesses has to be one of the toughest groups to sell to, because I mean, not only are they smart and they're selling themselves, so they know when they're being sold to, but every dollar matters to them. They don't have big, massive budgets like big, massive companies. So it must be pretty difficult, and you must have developed into a strong salesperson to have to sell to small business owners. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you also have to do it over the phone as well, because we're doing this primarily through an inside sales model. And a lot of it comes from the traditional, almost like a telemarketing approach, where you're doing 100 calls a day. It's a volume game, right? The key thing about selling to small business is that it's high velocity, low transaction value versus an enterprise sale. So there's a lot of volume, outbound volume, that needs to occur to actually make this into something scalable or something profitable. Now, the trouble with it is that if you're blasting out 100 cold calls a day and you're reading from a script, as you said, a small business owner has done this every single day. They get 15 to 20 solicitations, whether it be on the phone or whether it be in person. So their game is tight in terms of sniffing out the BS from some salesperson that just wants to make a sale very quickly. So our approach is very much rooted in empathy. We realize that when you are cold calling or you're soliciting somebody, you're interrupting their day. So we need to come in with that empathy of saying, this person might be dealing with a customer at the moment. They might have let go of an employee. They may have had a delivery that they were counting on. Just that person call in saying, sorry, it's going to be late, it's going to be delayed, but they critically depend on that particular delivery. So you don't know what moment you're catching them in when you make that cold outreach, but having that empathy to understand what are they going through on a daily basis and coming prepared with the right sort of information in that cold call, such that somebody would want to listen to you. That sort of preparation goes a long way. And for my sales team, obviously this took time to develop and we had to make a lot of mistakes, but our cold calls became the ones that business owners actually wanted to receive because they got a lot of value out of those conversations.
Let's touch on that for a second. I think you're absolutely right with the empathy, and you hit the nail on the head there. It's understanding, right? Like in our previous experience, we would try to hit 100 cold calls a day to small business owners. And the whole premise behind that was activity will generate those sales. At the end of the day, it really wasn't worth the time we were putting into it because we just weren't getting a lot of sales from all the activity that was being done. And I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of empathy that we had. It was reading off of a script, very cookie cutter, not understanding those pain points you just talked about or those interruptions that we might be doing to that small business owner. So maybe you can speak a little bit to, Raj, the actual example. What's an example? Maybe you can paint a picture or frame an example of a script that you kind of created to kind of paint that empathy.
Well, the term we like to use is more of a call flow than more so of a script. I mean, initially, you need a script and you're doing it word for word because you really got to understand, like if I have 5 points that I need to hit within a particular script, that's fine. So I've got my 5 here, but I need to fill in the gaps in terms of how do I transition from those particular points. And those gaps are going to be filled differently when I'm talking to a retail store owner versus somebody who owns a quick serve restaurant versus a car dealership versus maybe somebody who does B2B sales, right? So that conversation is going to be different, but I know I'm going to have a specific set of points that I need to hit within that particular call flow. So for an example, one of my best sales that I've ever made was talking to a vape store owner. It's probably about 4 or 5 years ago when vape stores were starting to become the rage and they're opening all across the country. So the critical thing, number one, is to generate curiosity within the call. I'm not just calling you out of the blue. I have some credibility because I'm working with A, B, and C vape stores all across Canada. And because it's such a tight-knit community, that person that I'm calling is going to be thinking, yeah, I know these names. These are familiar. Okay, if you're already working with them, there might be a reason to listen to you. Okay, go on. Here's the purpose of my call. I'm giving you a call because I am working with these vape stores and here's what I'm doing with them. I'm getting their customers to come back more frequently. I'm giving them an ability to capture or hold on to the market share in what is going to be a very competitive industry. And I'm sure these are things that you're talking about within your business right now as you're growing, expanding, and opening. Does that sound about right? Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, perfect. Here's what I'm doing for businesses just like yours all across Canada. And what I'd like to do is simply book an appointment, book some time where we can chat, have a conversation about your business, and then we can see if what I'm doing is going to be a fit for you as well. So within that call flow, if I can generate curiosity, tell them a little bit about what we're doing, tie into some things that they're already talking about, already thinking about right now, I can drive it towards the conclusion of, listen, I don't know if this is right for you, but let's schedule some time so we can go into some depth and talk about what's important for you right now. How can I help? And if we find a fit at the end of that, perfect. We can move forward from there. And if not, totally cool. We move on, part as friends.
So you're leading with the authority before prescribing a solution to the actual problem. Like I call it, I use the aspirin effect, right? What's that immediate sense of resolution to somebody's problem? Where does that have a play in your sales process, in driving down those pain points? How does that all play out?
Well, building credibility is something that has to happen throughout the entire sales process. Right before you even pick up the phone or even thinking about calling somebody, what are you doing in terms of developing your subject matter expertise within that field? I don't have to be a pharmacist to understand the pains that a pharmacy goes through. If a Shoppers Drug Mart has just opened 3 blocks away from you, that's a competitive threat for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons why I would go to a Shoppers Drug Mart, not necessarily just to fill my prescription, but that's one reason why I would go there. But shoppers will pull me in through, number one, the PC Optimum program. So there's a very strong loyalty program, number one. But number two, the strength of shoppers is the ability to go in there and draw attention to other items or services that I wouldn't have thought I would buy from there. So cosmetics, groceries, all my other needs, I don't really have to go anywhere else. So if I'm coming in and I'm talking to an independent pharmacy owner, that is going to help me lead the calls. Like, hey, listen, a Shoppers Drug Mart has just opened 3 blocks away from you. What are we doing right now to help protect your loyal customers from the Shoppers Optimum effect? So that's number one. Number two, if I'm reading up on the pharmacy category of the industry, and I know about specific developments within the industry where it's no longer illegal in BC to offer incentives on pharmaceuticals, for example. Perfect. There's a reason now why an independent pharmacy would want to consider a loyalty program, because there's a change within the industry. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of this information before even picking up the phone and making that call, so that when I come in, I'm not the 14th person that's calling in, reading off of a script. I'm that one consultant now that's called in and said, hey, listen, I know something about your industry. It's something that you're probably thinking about right now. And there's an opportunity for us to talk because I might have a solution that can help you out in that regard.
Awesome. Well, this is great so far. I mean, we're getting straight into it. We've already used some really great examples. So just for the listeners out there, the goal for today's episode is really to help you discover a new way of keeping your customers engaged and ultimately separate you from your competitors with, in this case, your own loyalty program. So Raj, let's just start with high level. And if you could, maybe give a brief on what customer loyalty programs are and maybe how they work.
Not a problem. Customer loyalty is all about, and I like the analogy of the leaky bucket. And we talked about this a lot back in the day when we were selling loyalty solutions, is that when you look at customers coming into a business, you're going to lose customers over time, no matter what. And there's going to be a lot of factors that are completely out of your control in terms of losing those customers. They move away. There's a personal situation that happens with that customer. You never know. You don't have control over all the aspects. So it's like customer acquisition. It's like I'm trying to fill up the bucket, but there's holes in the bucket that I can't seem to deal with. So I'm always losing customers. Mm-hmm. But then I have to struggle to help fill the bucket all over again because I'm losing customers. Now, the ability to install a loyalty program hedges the bet back in your favor. You can start plugging up some of those holes, right? Because stuff gets in the way, life gets in the way. I may not come to a business after I visited them the first time. I came in there because there's a new business within the community, or there's a welcome offer, something that I wanted to take advantage of, and I haven't come back in, say, 3 to 6 months. Mm-hmm. The ability of a loyalty program is to hedge the bet back in your favor such that those first-time customers, you lock them in for that second visit with a reward. If they haven't come back in, say, 3 to 6 months, I have the ability to reach out to them with a targeted offer that gives them a little bit of a nudge to come back in and visit me again. Again, stuff happens. They just forgot about you. So you need to be proactive with your loyalty program or your loyalty strategy to stay top of mind with those customers so that you can bring them back more often. If you need an incentive to do that, think about it this way. How much are you spending to acquire a customer, and compare that to how much it's going to cost to actually bring that an existing customer back. Far more cost effective, especially in a time like this where cash is tight. You want to think about marketing to the customers that are already familiar with your brand. Offer them incentives, offer them communication, something that's personalized to help drive them back to you to do business with you again.
Awesome. So thank you for that high level overview of kind of what they are and how they work. So, I mean, let's maybe now move into deconstructing some of the misconceptions that are out there around customer loyalty programs. I'm not super familiar with what a lot of these misconceptions are, although I know they exist. I mean, one for me, for example, is when it comes to point programs, it frustrates me more than anything when there's point programs set up that make it almost impossible to redeem anything. Like you need 1 million points to get a bag of chips. And I'm pretty sure it used to be Esso that used to have their point system. I forget what it was called, Esso Points, I think. And that was the case. You needed 1 million points just to get a bag of chips. So that might be one frustration that people have. But what are some of the other misconceptions out there?
It's a great thing to consider, because when we would knock on doors or make the phone calls and talk about loyalty, sometimes the first objection is like, listen, I don't believe in loyalty, right? We believe in having competitive prices, good service, and that's enough of a competitive advantage. When in fact, those are basic requirements from the business. Those are some things I expect as a consumer. It's what are you doing on top of that to secure my business? And that's where loyalty comes in. So a lot of the misconceptions come into the fact of, is this just discounting because we don't want to give away money for no reason, right? Okay, so discounting is not loyalty. Loyalty is all about having your customers earn the reward, earn the discount. They invest in you before you give something back. So loyalty is not about discounting. That's number one. Loyalty is also not about handing out like stamp cards, like the classic buy 10, get 1 free, as you would expect from like a coffee shop or auto repair for oil change, right? It's a good introduction into loyalty if you want to try something. But the real key thing about loyalty is I need to change behavior from my customers. If I'm not getting them to change behavior in any way, shape, or form, I'm really not going to see the ROI. So a stamp card, albeit it's a nice entry, a nice low barrier entry to loyalty, it's not really the most appropriate way to do loyalty. So there's a lot more depth that needs to take place before a loyalty program can be very successful within a business. So it's getting away from stamp cards and discounting and redefining what loyalty actually is. And then we can start building up, okay, what can loyalty actually look like within a business?
And that is so funny, because
there you go. That's the one.
As you're talking about this, I went to the coffee shop up the street today, and she gave me this stamp card. So, it's funny because there's no other coffee shop around our office. So obviously I'm going to go there and whatever, I guess if I remember, I'll stamp this card, but that is not a form of loyalty. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, think about it this way. What else does that coffee shop offer aside from coffee?
Everything you can think of: muffins, donuts, croissants, smoothies, that sort of thing.
Okay. So you've got almost anything that you would expect in like a bakery, a quick serve cafe, things like that are there.
Yeah.
For business to engage in more profitable loyalty, great. The stamp card is a great place to start. Maybe you can change the stamp card in a way where you can exchange information so the owner can actually communicate with you. Fine. But the real thing is you're already predisposed to going in there to purchase coffee. That's not going to change. No. So the stamp card is just reinforcing something that you're already going to do. You don't need the card to do that. The form of loyalty that needs to be in place is, how do I make sure that when David comes in to buy a coffee, he walks out with a coffee and a muffin. He walks out with a coffee and a baked item. He walks out with a coffee and a bagel sandwich. He walks out with those items. And if I get him to try those items, that might become a part of his regular purchasing patterns. And that's where the power of loyalty is. If I launch a brand new line of juices or smoothies, I got to make sure that somehow, some way, I get that into David's hands. Maybe he's a VIP customer, and so I'm going to give him a really good discount on a brand new line of smoothies, or even just give it to him for free. Why? Because I want him to try it, experience it, and if he starts making it a part of his purchasing patterns, now I've got something in terms of loyalty.
In terms of service-based businesses, ourselves, for example, we're a digital marketing agency. So or even maybe an auto shop. Like, how does it differ? How would you get creative with creating these loyalty programs for those type of businesses?
You got to think about the end result. That's the first and foremost thing. And so you have to think about, what sort of behaviors do I want to see from my customers, and what are the most profitable behaviors? Auto shop is very easy. The oil change is what brings them in. It's the transmission. It's selling them parts if you happen to have a retail section of that particular business. It's all the other value-added services that you want to have customers come in for. It's not just for the oil change, because again, they're going to come in for that oil change for a particular reason, right? I need to do it. I need to get this done. This just happens to be really close, maybe on my way back from the office, or it's just right around the corner from my house. Sure, I'm going to give that place a try. Right? So you'll secure the oil change. It's all about, I need to get more visits out of that customer. So I need to structure my rewards program to get people in for, okay, I want to be top of mind when something happens with the transmission. I want to be top of mind when they get a second car. I want to be top of mind when they need to do tire rotations. So we need to structure communication and rewards such that we get these other sides of the business sampled, right? Now, it's a little bit more interesting when it comes down to like the service side of things. And I was thinking about other industries. Healthcare is one, B2B, just B2B in general. You can think about like a B2B SaaS company, insurance and telecom. That's where you start thinking about more like a hub and spoke like model. And what I mean by that is the hub for like a retail environment, it's all about transactions. If you don't have anything more than that, you're really not going to be creating any loyalty. So I know we were talking before the show, the example of Lululemon expanding out and building more retail stores. The reason why they're able to do that is that they focus on the experience to help create loyalty. What does the customer experience look like? So when you're looking at service-based industries, when you're looking at B2B, you have longer sales cycles, for example, depending on the type of customer. After the transaction takes place, what happens afterwards? But there's a lot of touch points that you have with that customer. So what sort of content am I delivering to that customer during this entire life cycle? What does the onboarding experience look like? What does the cold calling experience look like? If you really dissect and take a very close look in terms of what the overall customer experience looks like from a B2B perspective, you're going to stand out far more than a company that just follows a standard process and applies a cookie cutter to every single customer that they approach. No two customers are alike. And so even from a B2B perspective, thinking about what the experience looks like can really, really help you in terms of putting loyalty in place with your customers.
Interesting. So I want to touch on data, for example, because you just referenced that a second ago. And I mean, one of the things that we always tell our customers or potential clients about data and why they should run ads on Facebook, for example, is that Facebook has access to an incredible amount of data and targeting options, so you can get your ad in front of your ideal customer. So what sort of data would a business owner have access to, be able to use to their advantage through a loyalty program if set up properly?
It depends on the nature of the business, but there's always attributes and characteristics that you can collect about your particular customer. My favorite supplement store that I go to, Herc's Nutrition in Toronto, like I've known this guy for about 4 or 5 years, and go figure, first interaction that we've had, he's a customer in terms of our loyalty program, right? And he used it very well. So you need to think about, how are you segmenting your customers? They're going to be in different classes. There's going to be different ways to describe them, right? So from a supplement perspective, it's like you have customers that are coming in. They're going to be putting on weight, or they're going to be cutting weight. What supplements would they need in order to fuel their weight gain or their weight cut? Perfect. If I can find ways to categorize, all right, this person's on a fat burning stack, they're on a keto diet, or this customer over here, they're on a bulking diet, so they need to have this many calories in a day. These are their objectives. These are their goals. They're an actual athlete. Very simple way of collecting that little bit of information there. And then you can think about, all right, if I have the ability to message or to reach out to those particular customers, well, then I'm not going to send the person that's on a fat burning stack anything about like a new weight gain powder that's come in, and vice versa, right? So you can make better decisions in terms of what sort of communications or how I'm communicating with that particular customer, right? So when you're looking at data, and I'm having the same conversation with a medical clinic right now, is like, well, we have about 15 or 20,000 records that we haven't really touched. Some of the things you want to think about is, when did they first visit? When did they last visit? What are they coming in for? Are they coming in for one service? Are they coming in for multiple services? That already gives you some insight in terms of who your customers are. Because if they're coming in for multiple services, well, they're pretty good customers, right? So I might treat them as a VIP as opposed to one that's coming in for a single service. So already you're starting to get a sense of who my customers are, how loyal are they, and then I can start structuring. Well, my VIPs, I want to treat them really, really good. So I'm going to send them a really good offer. These ones I haven't seen in 6 months, I need to nudge them in order to remind them about who I am and try to get them to transact with me again. But it's to your point, right? There's tons of data that's available out there. And the greater shift that we have to digital, the more data a business is going to have access to. The key thing is you need to be able to action on that data in some way, shape, or form, because that's what's going to help you accelerate and protect those particular customers, or protect your customer base.
So let's say a small business has created their loyalty program. It's rocking and rolling. What is the best way to leverage social media to help complement that rewards program. So like, obviously social media is a great way to develop even more loyalty amongst your customers, because you have followers that are seeing all of your content on a regular basis. What are some best practices for partnering up those loyalty programs with social media?
The easy answer to that is that's where you can start putting announcements for your tribe, for your community. So it's like, if you can have an offer where you have bonus points in particular times of the day because you want to drive more curbside pickup traffic, let's say between 2 and 5 p.m. Well, then you can blast that out on your TikTok, on your Instagram stories, or whatever it is, to say specifically between these times during these days, get bonus points when you come and purchase X. So you have the ability to target those particular offers and make those announcements on your Instagram. But I think even more on top of that is that people want to see content from your business, not just a call to action. So San Remo Bakery was a really good example of that. It's a bakery like out in the West End here in Toronto. They had to shut down completely, but then they were able to open up again. And they told the entire story of their reopening from start to finish. And so they showed, how did they actually build their curbside pickup area? How did they actually build the menu? How did they actually build the ordering platform that you can go online to right now and actually use? And if something goes wrong, they're addressing it right there in the in the comments. So somebody said, hey man, I couldn't access this. No problem. This is how we're going to deal with it. Actually, no, unfortunately, we can't deal with this one because we ran out of these particular donuts. So not only are they posting content to have a monologue and showing what's going on within the business, they're using social media to have a dialogue with their customers as they're showing how they're reopening. So I think those are really powerful ways to leverage social media. It's not just about the offers and the call to action. Tell your story. Show a little bit about behind the scenes. There's a big feeling of, listen, we got to support local. Man, if there's any advantage that small business has, is the ability to get personal. And that's the real power that they have over a big brand.
100%. And I mean, just to kind of recap what we've discussed so far is we've obviously done a high level of what customer loyalty programs are. We've deconstructed some of the misconceptions. We've talked about some of the data and how to use that data, which is probably the most important point. And so now, Raj, if there's a way for us to talk to the business owner out there that is interested in what we've gone over so far, how do they set this up? Like, what's their next step now that they're convinced, now that they're interested in setting up a loyalty program? How can they go about doing that?
Well, they need to first think about what's the objective of the loyalty program. What is it? And I always look at, when I have the initial conversation about loyalty, is what do you want to see out of your customers? What is that behavior that you're looking to get out of your customers? What do we need to do? So if I'm talking to you, let's say in my day job, a hospitality brand that wants to take advantage of an airline partnership. So we're talking about, let's say it's a 20 property, high end, like almost like a timeshare, if you will, right? They have business objectives, and the business objectives really do fall under very similar buckets. It doesn't really matter who you talk to. You really want customers to spend with you more frequently, spend a little bit more in their transaction, visit with you more frequently. So these are really the key things. But the first question I would ask them is, what is the behavior that you need to see from your customers? And they would tell me specifically, I remember this very clearly. It was, we have a specific line of properties where if a customer stays there, it's more profitable for us because the costs on that particular property are lower than the other properties that we have in our portfolio. Perfect. We're going to drive attention to that specific set of properties using an incentive. Perfect. So we're going to use airline miles as the currency to drive this behavior. Perfect. So it really comes down to analysis of, what do I want to see my customers do more of? The coffee shop, in your case, David, is an example, right? You have the stamp card there, but I will bet they want to see more sales of muffins, baked items, and other items within the business. So a clear definition of where do we need to head? How do we need our customers to behave now? That sets the stage in terms of, okay, I have this behavior in place. Now, how can I get that behavior to occur? Then you can start thinking about, what incentives would I need? How do I need to communicate with my customers? And so on and so forth before actually executing the loyalty program. So start with the end first.
Awesome. And so maybe you can share a little bit about the company that you work for now, just so people know kind of what you do, who you do it for, and if they are interested in setting up one of these programs for their small business, who can they contact and where? So if you want to maybe share a little bit about Points.
Yeah, Points.com, I would say we are the world's leading provider of loyalty solutions to the biggest airlines and hotels in the world. So if I think the most familiar example I can give you is Air Canada and Aeroplan. if anybody's a very loyal Air Canada flyer and you have an Aeroplan membership, you may have received emails very recently about the ability to purchase miles from Aeroplan, which is a first. Points.com is what powered that particular transaction. The traffic was so heavy that it crashed the server because the appetite for loyalty currency, especially if they haven't had the ability to buy loyalty currency from their favorite airline, is still very strong. So it gives you a sense of how powerful loyalty is. But we power a lot of that technology for airlines and hotels all across the world. Specifically what I work on, and now I get to work on a lot of different things, but one of the critical things that I do is that if a small business doesn't necessarily want to build their own internal loyalty program, but still wants to use some form of loyalty within the business, they can partner with an airline in order to get access to their currency and offer it as an incentive. So primarily I do this in the States. United Airlines is probably the biggest one that I work with, but there's other airlines that participate in this type of program. The types of partnerships we're talking about, think Air Miles LCBO. Go to the LCBO, so you have the ability to collect Air Miles there. So they have a particular partnership. In Canada, people can do that directly with Air Miles through a company called RMG, somebody that we've spoken to and we work with directly. So if a Canadian business, I'd recommend like car dealerships and real estate agents, other service-based industries, take a look at that. You have the ability to offer the currency. But if you're looking for more of the international presence, that's something that Points.com can absolutely help out with.
Cool. And I'm curious, what's your favorite points program or rewards program?
PC Optimum.
Really?
PC Optimum is by far my favorite. It's the one I engage with the most. And I would say Starbucks is probably a second.
How about you, Jay?
You know what? I like the loyalty programs. Don't get me wrong. I have the Optimum. I have the PC Optimum. I just don't remember putting it in my wallet. I'm always kicking myself. I'm in. I got to go back here again, but I know I don't have my card on me. It's kicking me. It's killing me.
It's all on your phone now. You can download the app and just show it to the cashier and scan it out. I know for PC Optimum, it's great. My partner loves that one, but I always forget the card and I haven't downloaded the app. But my favorite has to be Canadian Tire Triangle Rewards. And going back to the very beginning, for me, it's about making a decision. You know what I mean? Like I'll pick a points program to be a part of, for example, Triangle Rewards. And now my decision is easy where I'm getting gas. It's just not even a thought like, oh, well, I guess I'm just going to go to Canadian Tire and fill up my card because, you know, this is where I get my points. Like it's just an easy decision now where I'm going to buy stuff, not so much anything else. I don't know if others feel that way as well, but yeah.
Yeah, I think to piggyback on top of that, the decision-making and the new behavior that now I'm engaged in. That's really the key thing. That's why loyalty works. It's all about shifting behaviors, because if I have a choice between going to a Shoppers Drug Mart location versus another location like a Rexall, sure, Rexall's got Air Miles, but I'm more inclined to want to collect PC Optimum points because of the double redemption or the double earn or the ability to stock up all my points and then do Christmas shopping at Shoppers if I need to, right? Because I can get cosmetics and other items as well as gifts, right? Or dog treats, for example, right? So I mean, we can get all that stuff if we need to, right? But I'm predisposed to that because, like you're saying about decisions, yeah, absolutely, because it's now ingrained in my behavior. There is no question where I'm getting my gas for one simple reason, because I know I'm going to collect points. Yeah, and it's like I was like old school, right? I loved Canadian Tire money. I love the paper money, right? Yeah. So that's why I'm going to shop. I'm going to buy my tools over there because I know I'm going to get a little bit of a kickback at the end of that transaction.
It's subconsciously, I think everybody likes the game of it too. It's gamifying it all, right? It's getting those points. Yeah, I get my groceries. Yeah, I get my milk and bread, but I'm also getting these points too, right?
Well, think about it this way. Are you big fans of Seinfeld? At all? A little bit? Okay. A little bit. Towards the tail end, like I think the last couple of seasons, they do an episode where Elaine is collecting stamps towards a free sub, right? She's like, I've eaten 23 really bad subs and I need to get this one at the end of it. And it's like, what's involved here? Is there a captain's hat involved at the end of it? Yeah, maybe, right? But it's comical and we're poking fun at a lot of things. But the trouble is like, that's the whole point of loyalty. It's right to the gamification. I put so much effort into getting this reward. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get that reward. I'm so close to the finish line, right? And it's been scientifically proven that when you have like 9 stamps on the card, and they did this test with university students, they're going to go in and try to get that 10th stamp, right? To get that reward. When they have like 1 or 2 stamps, urgency is not really there.
Yeah. 100%. Well, that's great. And I want to thank you for sharing today, Raj. It's been incredibly insightful, and I've learned a lot. So, Jay, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap things up?
Yeah, maybe a way that our listeners or viewers can get in touch with you, Raj, if they have any questions.
Yeah, totally. Like my LinkedIn is always like the best way to go. You can search my name there on LinkedIn, but if you want to just drop me an email, raj@rajdhiman.com. That's raj@rajdhiman.com. Always happy to chat and connect with small business owners. And I have the weekly edition of my newsletter, The Small Business Hustle, that I put out every Monday at noon. It should be going out like clockwork today. You can find that at thesmallbusinesshustle.substack.com.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely connect with this guy on LinkedIn and check out his newsletter. There's a lot of great stuff in there. So Raj, we end every single episode with the exact same question. And that is, if you could choose one person, dead or alive, to represent your brand, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's a good one. That's a good one. I was always a big wrestling fan. Still am a big wrestling fan, but more old school. I have to go with Ric Flair. I got to go with Ric Flair. I still have the avatar that Points had printed out. They give you a custom avatar about a month in, and you choose the picture that you want. I remember, yeah, I'm taking Ric Flair.
Ric
Got
Flair.
a good picture with him with the big blonde hair and the robe. Yeah, absolutely, it's got to be Ric Flair.
You know what? Nobody's perfected. Nobody's perfected that overacting more so than Ric Flair.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think anybody has.
So good. I was actually coincidentally watching some old school WWF clips last night, and I must have watched this one TikTok of Ric Flair doing that fall multiple times.
Yep.
And I don't know how he does it, like without falling on his face every single time. You know what I mean? He does that step back and then the fall forward. He's perfected that.
Yeah, exactly. He just kicks his feet out and he just takes the face plant.
Yeah, love it. Awesome. That's a great one.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Ric Flair's the guy. That's great. So again, Raj, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate it, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks to you both.
Okay,
thanks,
cheers.
Cool. So another great episode with Raj Dhiman talking about loyalty programs. You know what? It made me start getting the wheels turning as well as how do you create a loyalty program for a digital marketing agency? Because there are certain B2Bs out there that might be wondering, like, how can I benefit from creating a loyalty program? And I think I think most businesses have multiple products that they can offer. And there's certain products that would be a really good fit for creating that extra incentive.
Yep.
Right. Like whether, let's say, for example, we have web design, but if we don't have a lot of work in web design, well, maybe that's something we can offer as an incentive to clients that are doing social media through us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely. I agree 100%. The biggest sort of metaphor throughout that episode that kind of hit me the hardest was the whole bucket. There's holes in the bucket. And these loyalty programs, as an example, are what can help fill those holes from clients ultimately falling out and leaving.
100%. So, I mean, yeah, it is inevitable. And we know that, right? And I think that's one of the things when a client leaves, you want to understand, well, what was the reason on why they left? And a lot of times there is no clear-cut reason that we know about. You know what I mean? There might be something on their end, and all it would take is a little bit of extra incentive or some sort of a program to keep them around for maybe another few months to let us work out the kinks or figure out a solution to better bring value to their business, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
For sure. Well, that was a great episode. Thank you all so much for listening in today. We appreciate it. And Jay, let's send it off.
Yeah, awesome. You know where to go. Give us a subscribe to our podcast. Keep following us on our Facebook groups, and 5-star review would be awesome. Share it with your friends. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Take care.